So all right, welcome back. So in this one, we're going to be implementing the database that I just showed you in the slideshow. It's going to be like a basic bank transaction kind of setting here. So currently, we're already getting password and username from the template. So I'm going to go back to the template. Actually, I'm going to change this password to pin. So I'm just going to change the name to pin. And we'll come over here and change what we are getting to pin. So we want to try our best to save this data inside the database. And sorry, I didn't tell you before, the database is actually here. So as you can see, db.sqlite. And yeah, we have 0 tables at the moment because we haven't made migrations and all that. So right now, to create a database model, or should I say a database table, you're going to go over to models.py. And inside here is where we're going to be creating those classes I've been talking about. So here I can just do class, and I'm going to pass in the name of the table. Okay, so that will be user account. And right now I'm going to put parentheses and do models, the capital M model. So this is going to inherit from like the base model class. It's going to just basically help us create the database model. Since we're not writing real SQL queries, we're going to be using the Django way of getting data and all that stuff. As you can see, models was automatically imported here. So if you don't see that, just type this string here from django.db import models. So inside the class, we're going to create 2 columns. So the first one is name. Let's just say username, and this is going to be equal to models dot char field, and in the brackets we're going to pass in something like max underscore length, and that's going to be equal to like 200 or something. So let me explain what just happened. We created a username column and it's going to be of this type. So char field is just like character field, and what it's saying is the max length should be 200. So that will be the max amount of letters that your username can contain. So if you want this to be like unlimited, you can use a models.text field like this and just remove the max length there. So the next one we're going to add is the pin. So that will be integer field. Sorry, first off, the name pin, and it's going to be equal to models.integer field. Yeah, we're not going to be passing any max length or anything. Anyways, as you can see, if you try to create a user account, it's going to ask for these 2 details. Okay, so if you don't give it these 2 details, you're going to be thrown an error. But what if you want like an optional one? Okay, like probably a nickname or something. So I'm going to type in nickname, and it's also going to be a char field because we don't want to be populating our database with a nickname 1000 characters long. So we just do models.char field, and in here, let's say max underscore length should be equal to a 50. So now it's going to still be mandatory, but we can pass in null equal to true. This just sets the value optional. Or if you want to give it a default, so if none is given, you can give it a default, and that will be equal to something like default nickname. I think that should work really nicely. So before we can actually use this, we have to do something called making migrations and migrating the database. So making migrations is basically going to get everything in the models and create tables for them. Okay, that's just what it's doing, creating tables for them. And I think migrate is migrating those tables to the database. So this is actually quite helpful because you won't have to delete your database every time you want to create new changes to like columns and all that. So if I don't want this column again, I can just comment it out and I'll make migrations and migrate. So to make migrations and migrate, all you're going to do is go over here to your terminal, and we're going to do Python manage.py make migrations. Make sure you get that correctly, the spelling and no space between it. So Python manage.py make migrations. As you can see, it has created that model user account, but the model is not here in our database. If you check the database, it's still 0 tables. So that's why we're going to migrate. So I'm going to just remove that and say migrate. So over here, you can see it's going to create a lot of tables for us. Most of those tables are default by Django because of their authentication and all that admin. And we'll go into that later on when we are talking about users, authentication and all that. But if you check your db.sqlite now, you should see a couple of tables. As you can see, 12 tables. You can ignore all of them and go back to base user account. And as you can see, we have 0 records. That means no rows inside. We can go back to our views, and instead of just printing the user password, I'm going to actually show you 2 ways that you can add this username and password. So the first one is I can just say new underscore user, and this is going to be equal to, oh sorry, we have to import that model. So we can do over here from dot models import user account. So new user is going to be user account. In brackets, we're going to pass in the name and the password. So user name equal to username, and also password equal to password. Sorry, pin equal to password. Yeah, that should do it. As you can probably tell, we're setting the username and the pin and leaving the nickname empty. Now we haven't actually created it yet. We can do new underscore user dot save and put that brackets there. And this basically just saves the model. So alternatively to using these two lines, what you can do is user account the objects dot create, and in here you're just going to pass in this username and password. So I'm going to copy that and put it inside here. And in this one, I just want to make it a bit different, and I'm going to set the nickname to something else. So I can just say nickname equal to Davis Dev. So the database is automatically going to create an ID for each of these guys, so you don't have to pass in the ID manually. So what we're going to do is we're going to run this actually. So I'm going to go over, run it, open this in my browser. As you can see, we can pass in Davis Dev and password. Let's just say password. I'm going to submit. Okay, field pin expected in number but got password. Yeah, also I'm sorry, this is a problem because when we are sending the data from the index.html, it comes as a string, so we have to convert it to an int before we put it in the database. So just convert that quite simply to an int. It reruns by itself. We go back and I'm going to just refresh, put in Davis Dev, and instead of putting password, I'm going to put like 1234, something like that, and submit. Hopefully you're going to see the request the post still prints out. I'm going to remove that. Go over to your db.sqlite, go over to base underscore user account, and you now have two records. So as you can see, it automatically assigns an ID of 1 and 2 by itself. The next one is username Davis Dev, and the pin 1234 the nickname. One of them got the default nickname and one of them got the nickname we actually set. In later tutorials, we're going to be looking how to query data from the database, show it to the user, and all that stuff.